Hello there, my name is Jimmy Wikman, and in this video we are going to take a look at assets. And assets is something that you only have in your Jira instance if you have Jira Service Management Premium or Jira Service Management Enterprise. And if you have that, you will have noticed that you have a little link there called Assets, and it will take you to basically a database. And in this database we create different things that we can use for our everyday for documentation purposes. And you can also use them in your tickets to get more information about the ticket itself. So for example, you can have customers in there, you can have user information, you can have information about different systems, different platforms, you can have information about for example, users' cell phones or their computers, if you are in IT support, for example. So for us today, I'm going to show you an example on how you can use it to document your Atlassian setup. So we're going to go through the basics on how it works. We will explain how you connect different things and how you enrich it with information. So with that said, let's jump into Jira and into assets and start configuring things. So here we are now in Jira, and I have, for the purpose of this video, set up a trial so we can have something to play around with. And the first thing that you do when you get into your instance is you need to find this thing called assets here. And like I said, only if you have Jira Service Management Premium or Jira Service Management Enterprise will you see this one. But if you see this one, and if you click on that one, this is the first view that you will see. This is the landing page of assets. And you will see that we have already from the beginning something called services. And this is a default function that you have in Jira Service Management, even if you don't have Premium or Enterprise. And in your projects, if you go to my demo project here, you will see that we have something called services here. And basically what you can do is you can list your different services and you can connect things to it. One thing that is very good for you to know regarding services is that it does not behave the same way as other object schemas. And that is because this one is hard-coded into the platform itself. So it is very limited to what you can actually do for it. But let's first discuss these terms here. You will see that we have object schemas here, and when we create things we will have object types and we will have objects. So the schemas, they are similar to projects. So when you create one of these you will get the buckets, and these are referred to in assets as schemas. And then you will have different categories of data in your object schema, and they are referred to object type. So it is the categorization of a type of object you have. And the data entries themselves, kind of like the tickets or the issues, they will be referred to as objects. So in this list here, as you can imagine, when you're starting to work with this one, you can have a rather long list. So for convenience, you have a little search bar here, so it's easy to find. And this is kind of the same way that you have it for projects. And you also will see the list here on the object schemas here, and on the side you will see the number of objects that you have in your assets, the total number of objects in your assets. And you can also see, this is fairly new, so if you click on this one you can see the detailed usage in your admin section. And it will also list a number of recent objects that you have looked at. We have just recently checked in the demo service, which is in services here. And overall you can configure assets with the general configuration. So we're going to check that one out first. So in the general configuration you have three different things that you can configure here. So the first is the reference type. And the reference type is when you connect two different objects or two object types to each other, then you will have a little link between them. So it's kind of like a dependency link. And that's not just because I pointed on this one, but any of these one will actually tell you what kind of link do you have to the other object. And this one you can create, and you can set the different colors on them. So if we create a new reference, it will just have a name and a description and a color on it. And I'm going to show you how this one looks, because you can create them. You don't need to create them here, because these are general that we'll use for all schemas. So it's more useful for you to create them within the schemas themselves, so you can have local ones instead of messing around with this one. Global statuses, and there is a specific field that is called status that you can use for a drop list basically on what kind of status a certain object has. And it has, like you see here, you have 3 different types here. So you have active, inactive, and pending. And you can also see if we go to, I was only those. And you can also have then the name here. So if you create a new status, that will be for everyone, and you have a name and a description, and then you will have the type and the category. And the global icons, this is different from data center. In data center you have icons per schema also, but in cloud we only have global. So everything that you want to have as a little icon here, and we're going to show you where you will have those. You need to upload them globally. So those are all the general configuration that you have for assets. So now then, let's start by creating a new scheme. So we will click on Create a Scheme, and you will first get some suggestions here. You'll have IT Asset Management, and you can see here on the side what kind of objects or object types you will actually get here. And you can have for people, so we can create one of those, and you can have for facilities. These are the 3 ones that you want to have, or that you can have. But for us, let's start with the blank schema here today. So let's just call this one Atlassian Configuration. And you can set a key for it, so let's call this one Atlassian then. Just because we can. And if we want to have a description, documentation. So with this information we now can just create a schema. So when you create something, a new schema, you will see you have the name up here, and we don't have anything else basically here because we haven't created anything yet. So we can see for the schema configuration here, we can see that we have roughly the same thing. So we will have information, we can change the name and the description of it, we can have the key for it, a number of objects, and then you can have enable quick creation of referenced objects. This one will allow us then to quickly link different things together, and you can validate object attributes in quick object creation. So it will validate when you try to create it. And if you want, you can also allow others select objects from this schema, and what this one means is that I can allow other schema owners to actually reference this one. So if you want to be able to do this one, then you can click this one as well. For now, since this is now for Atlassian configuration, we don't want to share that with anyone. It's just the Atlassian team that should have it. So we will leave this unchecked here. And then we have the same thing here, reference types. We haven't created any local ones, and we will do a lot of these when we work later on. So you can either create a new reference here, or you can change the ones that we will create. Statuses are also localized, so we can have, except for the global ones, we can also have local ones. And in roles, this is where you set access to this particular schema. So it's the same way that you restrict access, for example, in your product. So we can have it on user level, or we can have it on group level. And it's very simple. If you want to have, then you just select, for example, me. There you go. And now I'm the only one that can then be object schema manager for this one. Or I can select a full group for it if I want to have Jira admins, for example. For now, let's just leave these out. And in the import here, this is where you can import data. I'm going to have a separate video for that one because it is a little bit different. And for some reason, information about this is still not very easy to come by. But basically what you do is you create an import, and you can select different types. So you can have the discovery, which is a feature that assets come with that can spider into your network and discover different information. You can import as a JSON or a CSV, or you can do basically an integration with another tool that you can automatically import data from. But that we will take in a separate video. So now then we have our schema and we want to create some object types. So let's start thinking through what kind of configuration we want to document in Jira. So the first thing I want to do is to have something called projects. So when we create an object type up here, you can see this is now a category of objects. And I can now select an icon for this one. So let's put anything there, and we can select a parent for it, like we can for everything else. And we don't have to worry about the parent because we can drag and drop things later on if we want. But for now, let's just create something called projects. And what you will see now when we created that one, you will see that we have a little 0 there, and on the right side here you will see the objects that we have, and we also have attributes. So here we can create now all kinds of data that we want to connect with all the objects. But I created this one not because I want to have objects in it. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I tend to use the word where you have many as the root, and then in the actual data objects I want to have them as singular. So this one is for plural, it's for multiple data objects regarding to projects. And then I want to have one that's called just project. So I will click on the plus sign here, so I can create a new one, and I want to call this project. And I can select something else for this one, that one probably, and it will have the parent of project. Now, why would I want to do this? Well, for me, I want to have more than one more than one object type related to projects. So rather than having it just as the root here, this will now encompass everything related to projects. And this called project here is where I will actually have the project data. So besides project, I also want to have things like project category, for example. And this one can be something like that. And now you see I have two children here, so project. And if I want, I can actually move this one into this one, and you will have now a little cascading architecture here, or hierarchy here. So now I can have many things. So now we have created just the objects. And if I want to change any of these, you can see that we get the 3 dots here. So let's see, project category, I didn't like the way this one looks. I can now configure the object type. And if I want to configure it, then you will see that I will have almost the same as for the schema, but fewer things obviously. But I will have the name and I will have the icon, so I can change them at any time. I will also have the roles, so I can actually have it open. I can have the schema open for everything, but I can have just the object type can be locked down. So I can say everyone can see everything, but just this one specifically, I can now lock down to specific individuals. And then we have something called inheritance. And this one is important. So if you, for example, click this one, then anything that you have, any object type that you create below this one will actually inherit the same structure. So these are the properties it will now inherit. And when it comes to this last one here, set this object as abstract. What basically this one means is you don't want to have anything created below this one. So it becomes kind of like a blank object or just a category. You cannot actually have anything in it. So if I wanted to change this icon now, I can change it to something else. I can click that one perhaps. And if I go back, then you will see that I have changed this one. If it's just the icon that you want to change, you can also just click on this one and you can do the same thing. And the same thing with category if you want to change the name for it here. So you will always have quick information on how to create these things. But let's see now, for projects here, we want to have some data for this one. So right now, if I create an object for this one, I can just create one for the purpose of creating it. So right now we only have the name for it. So let's call this one Project A. Now this is not a lot of information to have for an object. So I'm going to go to attributes here and give it more information. And this is where much of the magic happens. But before I do that, I want to first create one product category also. So I just want to create one called, this one is for demo purposes. And let's create one more, just so we have. And this one is for, let's call it Atlassian. There we go. And the reason I wanted to create those is just so we can use them in here. So I want to connect them and say what category is this one related to. So let's go to attributes. And this will allow us to create different types of data. So in this little category that says type here, this is where we have a lot of values or options that we can choose. So if you choose the default one, then it's just within this object itself that you created, and then you will get a sublist here where you can create different things. If you create an object, then you connect it to another object type, and that can be within the same schema, or it can be another schema. And if you click user, then it is only for users in, you can select different groups or individual users. No, sorry, you can only select groups here, and you can select them then from your Jira instance. You can also have group, then it will actually fetch from different types of groups. And again, it will only be the ones that you have in Jira. Project will connect to projects. Status, this is where we have those configurations that we did. So this is, now you will see the list of the global ones that we had. And then when you create new ones, then you can select that. And then you have, so you can connect it to a Bitbucket repository if you have Bitbucket. But for now, let's just start by, we want to connect this one first then to the project category. So let's just call this one project category. And then I want to select this one. I want to fetch the data then, or connect the data from this one. So it needs to be an object. And then I will select then the object type, and this one will tell me every object type that I have available to me. And if you have a big project, then you probably have a lot in here. But for now, it was very easy to find, so we just create the project category. And then I can choose what kind of reference I want to have. Now you can choose to have this one as a reference if you want, or you can actually make a new one that is very specific. So if I want, I can now create a new one that's called product category. And this one does not exist, so then you will create this new reference by clicking here, and then you add this one. And you can see now here that this one turned out to be red, and if I want to change this, I will go to schema configuration and I will change the color there. So let's do that right away. So I can go for reference type, and you will see we will have this one product category. And now I can select another color for it. So maybe I want to have this one teal, perhaps. And now if I go back then to product and to attributes, you will see that this one has now changed. And let's see, what else do we want to have? We want to have project leader, and we want to have perhaps that person's email address. And so let's wait with that one for now. We can use the user for now. Project lead, and we can have this one as default, or we can have this as a user, and then we can have this one for, let's see which one is for everyone, this one, and add. And let's do one project lead email. And for this one, I want to make sure it has the correct format, so I can actually use the one called email here, and I can add that one. And maybe we want to have general information about it, so let's call this one description. And we can either choose to have it as text if we don't want to have it that long, or there's one called text area that we can use. So let's stop there, and let's take a look then at our object. So now then you will see that we have more information here, so I can now add it. So now it should fetch me There you go. And I want to have this as a category. You will see that I will get the categories from now this object because we are connected to that one. So I can now have this one. But I would like to be able to put multiple categories here. So how do you do that? Because now if I try to select demo here, you will see I only have one. So regardless of which one I choose, I will always only have one. So what we can do then is we can go into attributes. We can check the project category and go to these three dots to further configure this one. So we click on configure, and here you will have some additional things that you can configure for different objects. So for example, if I had project category here and I had additional information under it, so other object types under this one, I could include children. Then it will take everything that is here and everything below that one. I can say that this one has to be unique. In that case, you cannot have two items with the same value. But what we are looking for is cardinality, to say how many can we actually have. So here we can set the minimum and we can set the maximum, and we can check this little box here that says unlimited, and then you can actually have as many as you want. You can also have an AQL here if you want to filter it specifically. So you can say, for example, I only want to have project categories that is related to something specifically. But for us, in this time, we just need to be able to put multiple values here. So we can set unlimited for this one. And what happens when I go back to the object here now is that in here I can now have two values. There you go. And now I can have both of them. And I can enter an email here if I want. And the description. And here I can type in whatever I want. Let's put in. There you go. Now I have some information here. I can collapse this one on the side a little bit so you can see it. And you see this one here. This one is connected now to another object type. So this one will be referred to as an outbound because we are pointing towards another one. And this one will now be shown here on this side here. So you will see that we have one called project category, and this one will link now to two objects here on the side. So if you have a lot of information here, or later on when we will connect this to a ticket, you can see more information about this one, and you can extend this one. And if you want to see what this one now looks like, we have something called an object graph. So you will see now that this is the project that we have, and these are the two connectors that we have. So you can see that the arrow points out towards this, so you have the little arrowhead there. And you can also see information, all the information that we have here. And once we connect this one to Jira Service Management, you can also see if there are any linked objects connected to this. So that was that. Now we have started now then to create this one. But now I would like to have, instead of having this one just related to Jira users, I might want to have this one connected to a larger database. So let's create one that is for users. So I will go back to assets here. And now you will see that we have our Atlassian configurations here, and we have three objects. So if I create a new schema here, and for this one I will just use this template here. So it will have employees, department, and role. These will be the standard ones that we get. So I will just click on use template, and we will call this people. We could call this human resources, or we can call this anything we want. Let's see, people. So now we have employees, we have department, and we have roles. So let's start by creating an employee here. So let's just see what we can do. We can call this one. This can be me. And this one I can now connect to Atlassian account ID. I can set a manager for me, a job role, and so on. But let's just create me with a name here first. And we can create a fictional department called Atlassian Platform Team. And I can create a role for it. So let's call this Atlassian admin is the word I'm looking for. Like that. And now I can go back to employees here again, and I can add a little bit more. So I can have now a job role. I can now be an Atlassian admin, and I have the Atlassian platform team as my main main department. And let's create one more here. So let's see, I work for Jane Doe. Yeah, so I can enrich my own. I can have Jane here now as my manager. Full-time employee. Start date. Let's see, I started a little bit earlier. Can have status. Let's put exempt. There we go. Now you saw that we have different types here. We'll have, oh sorry, could not find the attributes. I think it's a little bit wonky today. Anyway, yes, these information that you get here, the type of things that comes in the template. So if we go to attributes here, you will see that they have created certain things. So email here, for example, that is the same that we had for emails. And then you have employment type is a select type. And anytime you create something that is a select type, you can then configure it over here, like we did before. And you can choose options here. You see, for this one here now have unique, but you don't have anything like children, for example, because it's not an object type. It just has to be unique. And on the options here, you can now create new values. So right now they have created 2. So let's add part-time employee. So now we have another type here, and I click update, and this one will be available. So if I now go into this one, I can have part-time as a value. And the other thing you saw here was date. So here you will see then this one has a date object so that they have selected here. So they use date for that one. Anyway, let's go back. I feel like I'm confusing a little bit now. So let's go back to the first asset here. So if we go back to our project again, to project A, we want now to change the project lead from using the internal Jira group to instead using the new table or the new database that we're basically creating, the new object scheme called people. So let's go into attributes again, and in this case, since we already have it enabled here, we cannot change it. If we don't have an entry in it, then it will be different. So let's go back to the object and let's change this one. Let's remove this one so we don't have any options for it. And then if we go back into attributes again, now we can change this one from being a user to an object. And then I can select object, and you will see that I do not have this one now. And because what I forgot to do was to make sure that I could use it in other schemas. So we need to go back now to assets. And I'm sorry for making this one confusing for you. But in this one, we need to have the schema configuration, and I need to check this one. Allow others to select objects from this schema. And now when I do that, and I go back to our projects again, and then I go into attributes, now you will see then that I can now have for project lead, I can change this one to object, and now you will see that I have then the object types from the other schema. So now I can select employees here, and I can then say what kind of reference is this, and this is project lead. So now I can add this as a reference, and I update this one. And if I go back to this one, and it's a little bit slow today, then if I select this one, now you will see I will have the objects from the other object scheme. So now I can select this one, and now you will see that I will have a reference to this one, and this one will also be outgoing. And also, just so you are aware of this one, every time you see something that is linked, you can click on it and you can automatically go to that object view. And object view is a little bit different than what you have here. This is the object type view. This is where you will get a list of all the things in a list here, and you can open them here on the side. But if you click on one of these, it will actually take you to the object view. And as you can see, this one looks different because you do not have anything on the side or anything else. It will just be this object. And to get back to where you actually were, and this one will take you there, or you need to go back. So you need to revert with the browser. And speaking of the object type view, now that we have created some things here, maybe you want to know also what all these mysterious icons are and what you can do with it. So the first thing that you can do then is to do bulk actions. So you can edit all of them, you can export them, or you can print QR codes if you're using that, or you can delete them. And this one, last one, might seem stupid, but if you are doing imports from CSV, for example, then it's very common that you sometimes need to remove everything and start over if you do something wrong. An edit object that will allow you to change all of them, and this can be when you have multiple selected, because you can use the filter here, and this one will allow you to filter on all the attributes that we have. So you can, for example, have on name, and then you can search for the name that you want to have. So in this case it will be project, and then you can have that as a filter. And you can have multiple filters for this one. So if we search for project here, and maybe you want to have project lead as a second one, and then we can have like that. And then the filter will then update, and you will see that we have two filters selected here in this one. And if you don't like to having this one, when you have multiple projects, let's create a project B here also, so you can see how it looks with more. Project B, just a name for it. And we need to clear this one so we can actually see it. So you will see, once you have a lot of things here, it is maybe it's not the view you want to see. Maybe you want to see more like a table view. So then you can actually use this little icon to get a list view of this instead. And in the list view, you still have your bulk actions, and you also have something called columns, and you will have filters, and you can go back to the detailed view. So if you want to add and remove columns, you can simply select whatever you want here, and they will automatically then move up. Maybe I don't want to have created and updated. Like so. Then you can have whatever information you want in that view. And if you go back to this view, you cannot customize this one, because this one is predefined, and this is based on your attributes. And in the cards themselves, or in the object themselves, you will see that you have the little name of this one, and this one, if you click on it, will take you then to the object view for it. And then if you want to go back, then just go back. Here you will actually have different functionalities, so you can actually send feedback to Atlassian if you want. You can see a QR code if you are working with that. And in here you can then hide empty attributes. For example, in this case we don't have any empty, but if I were to remove this one, now this one will be empty, so if I want I can hide it. Then it will only show the ones that you have filled in. And this is good if you have a lot of data and not all of them are relevant, and you might want to break it out. And you can also clone this one, making a duplicate, so it's almost the same, or you can delete it, so you can delete individuals ones here. You can also see the linked objects, and these are collapsible, so you can actually collapse this one, because sometimes there's a lot in here. And if you click on this little icon, this is the object graph, it's the one that will show you these relations between everything. And you can see now we have one more, it points out to a user in this case. And also in this object details view, you have these three icons, so you can either have them locked, or they can be a little bit loose like this, and they float a little bit. Or you can lock them, so you can drag them so you can see better. And you can also filter on this one, so you can say, for example, how many levels. So I could in theory have, from this demo here, I can have other attributes that will actually connect to other objects. So then it can be a very large tree. So then I can reduce this one and saying, don't only show me one reference. And you can also limit the number of outbound references. In some cases you can have hundreds of references, and it might be a little bit difficult to see here, so then you can reduce that one. And you can also reduce based on the type. So if you only want to see project lead, for example, then I can remove project category. Or if I want to do the opposite, then I can do this. Linked issues, we're going to look at when you connect this one to Jira Service Management. Linked issues will show up here, and by default it will be only the ones that are open. So if you click on this one, then you can actually uncheck hide resolved issues, and then you will see even closed issues. So then you can see the full history of it. And you can also create your own filters for it if you want to have them sorted on a specific filter. And attachments, you can upload an attachment here, and you can view attachment as a grid if you want. So this can be good if you have different files that you want to upload. When I'm recording this one right now, there's a limit of 20 megabytes for the attachments. I don't know if this one is hard-coded or where you set this one, so I'm going to talk to Atlassian about where this one is set and how you change it, because not everyone can live with a 20 megabyte attachment size. And since you can change attachment in other parts, it would be good that you can change this one as well. So that's everything that you need to know here then for the attributes in the object itself. And you also have, so you can configure the object type. So in this case it will be just this one that you will change. So this is one we already looked at. So you have roles, you have inheritance. So this is where you can also click that one. So instead of going through this one, you can always, when you're in one of the object types, you can click up here and change it. And just for fun, sometimes when you are playing around with this one, you get quite a lot in your schema tree, but you can get an overview of everything here. So you can actually see the full tree, and this could be fun when you have a lot of them. It can also be very overwhelming, very difficult to see. But you have one that will show the whole tree as a schema, so you can see all the relationships in that way. And just to show you one last thing then before we end this one, and that is how can I upload my own icons here, because this is something that a lot of people want to do. Not everyone like the default ones that comes here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So the first thing you need to do is go back then to the overview, and you need to go to the global configuration. And from here you need to go to global icons, and you need to create an icon, and then you can upload something. So in this case we're going to have some Jira icons that I have created. So let's pick one that might make sense. Let's have the Jira icon, for example. And when you are on a trial, it takes a little bit longer than it does when you have a premium, of course. So now I can go back and I can create this one, and I can change, and I can now search for Jira. And there you go. Now I have changed the icon for this one. And if I go back and forth, all of the other ones will now have the default ones. And that could also be good to know that when you are creating an object type, and set an icon for that one will be used by all the objects inside. But if I want, I can now go to project A here, and I can select something completely different, and it's called an avatar here. So if I want, I can instead have this one. And now you will see then that I have different images depending on which one it is. And you will see the new little container here that says avatar. So this one you can use in different ways. For example, if you want to document automations, for example, you can actually use this one, and it will show then the automation screenshot if you want. But that was a very brief overview of what you can do in assets. So I hope this one was useful for you. Please ask questions in the comments if you have, if I missed anything. And also I will do additional videos in the future. So I already promised you I will do one for import. And I also will try to make some more elaborate setups and show you a little bit more complex setups later on. So anything that you have wondering about and that you want me to show in a video, please put it in the comments below. So with that, the only thing remaining for me to say then is I hope you will have an awesome day and a great week.